To the August 27th Owen Sound City Council meeting, and we have been meeting as council since 5:30 this evening. We have suspended the in-camera portion of our meeting to come to our public meeting, and we'll get underway immediately. We have a item here who is going to be addressed by Mr. Morley Gregg, who I see in our audience. And Morley is going to bring us a faith blessing this evening.
Your worship, well, members of the council, ladies and gentlemen, we are privileged in being able to meet once again this evening. Thankful for health and strength, we invoke your blessing, mighty, loving Heavenly Father. Grant wisdom and careful study to best suit today and for generations to come. In the name of Christ, your Son. Amen.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gregg. Are there any additional items for tonight's agenda? Councillor Twaddle.
Two items that I wish to raise briefly. One is LED streetlights, and the other is, and I'm not sure who it gets directed to, the issue of deciding where the no parking from here to corner signs go.
Okay. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Worship. I have one item about a certificate from our museums, and the other is in regards to AMO.
It's Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I have one item, and I have I want to bring up an issue regarding the centerpiece on 10th Street East.
Any other members of council? Members of staff? Ms. Coulter.
Your Worship, I'd just like to take a moment tonight, if I could, and introduce our new community planner.
Anyone else? Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. We have an additional bylaw this evening, number 2012-151, which is a bylaw to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute an agreement between the Corporation of the City of Owen Sound and WASA of Kitchener, Ontario, respecting the Juneau landfill groundwater interceptor. And I also have another piece of business, which is a request for a land sale regarding the north piece of a lane known as lane PL 227.
Anyone else? Okay. A disclosure of pecuniary interest. Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Worship. I declared a pecuniary interest with regards to several related items on the in-camera agenda, and I'll be declaring pecuniary interest with regards to a number of items dealing with the Parking Review Committee, including their in-camera minutes, which are on the public agenda, and also the DIA minutes and the DIA in-camera minutes, and also to a reference to the parking, downtown parking in the bylaw committee. I think I got them all, but I'm going to trust the clerk if there are any others. I'm declaring those as well. Thank you.
Any others? Seeing none, confirmation of the minutes, please, from the regular council meeting on July 23rd.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor Lemon that the minutes of the regular meeting of City Council held on July 23rd, 2012, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Minutes of the special council meeting held on July 23rd.
Thank you, Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Lemon that the minutes of the special meeting of City Council from July 23rd, 2012, as printed, be adopted.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. Resolution moving council into committee of the whole, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Adair that City Council now go into committee of the whole to consider public meetings, deputations, public question period, matters arising from correspondence, reports, matters tabled, motions for which notice was previously given, and other business.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We'll have to do paper airplanes to reach this great distance. Thank you. Okay, public meeting with regards to disposal of surplus land, part of Park Lot 9, Range 8, in Owen Sound. Madam Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. This notice that you see on the screen, sorry. In the meantime, I'll mention that we have put a notice in the Sunday Times respecting a piece of land that the city is considering disposing of. The article in the Sun Times, the notice of the Sun Times invited anybody who had an interest in the land to advise that they, either in writing or by coming this evening, whether they had concerns that they wanted to bring forward to council. The Clerk's Department can identify that we have not received any comments in writing, and we open the floor this evening for anybody to bring comments forward verbally.
Is there any member of the public who has comments on the disposal of this piece of property? I don't believe so. Thank you. Deputation this evening, I think I saw Jean. Yes. I'm going to come down to that podium to make a presentation this evening. Good evening. This evening we're here to present a double facade grant to Jean Francis. In 2003, Jean received approval for a double facade grant on her building located on the Sydenham River between 9th and 10th Street East. The building was a small warehouse which Jean has renovated into a really neat loft apartment on the second level and an artist studio on the main floor. There we have some images up overhead. Jean continues with improvements to the building and is receiving a facade grant this evening for a second-story deck that looks out over the Sydenham River. In 2011, the Facade and Structural Improvement Program was revised to encourage revitalization and improvement of the rear facade of buildings along First Avenue East that face the river. Jean has done a great job of accomplishing this. It's been a long time and great work. The redevelopment of this particular building and all of the riverfront, you've shown incredible leadership in beginning that, stimulating that interest, and I'm sure this will act as a catalyst for further development along the river. So on behalf of City of Owen Sound, I present you with your check and wish you all the best in your future.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Your Worship. If I could just take a moment of council's time so Mr. Popovich doesn't stay all night. I would just like to introduce Nick Popovich. Nick is in the audience tonight. Nick comes to us from Bracebridge, where he lived and worked in the private sector. He also worked in the public sector, both in Ontario and in the Cayman Islands. So Nick has a wealth of land use planning experience, and Nick, certainly welcome to the City of Owen Sound. We look forward to you working in the Community Services Department in planning.
Thanks very much and welcome. We're at public question period. Are there any members of the public here this evening that would like to ask a question of this council? Seeing none. Correspondence. There's no correspondence. We have a fairly large consent agenda, which I believe is up on the screen. And for those people at home, it's also on the City Council portion of the Owen Sound City website, as are all the reports always. Councillor Chamberlain.
I'll move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
Thank you. Any discussion on any of the items within that? All those in, Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship, one question. Is the site around the old Coliseum or former Coliseum, whatever, going to be cleaned up by the time the fall fair comes?
That's a good question for the Director of Operations.
Yeah, the work that's scheduled for the Coliseum is intended to be completed by the end of this week. Actually, on Wednesday, I'm going out to do my final inspection.
Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. We are at the business license, oh, no, we're not. Reports. We have a report from the city manager with regards to the final draft strategic plan. Councillor Blatty.
Thank you, Your Worship. Before Ms. Corsi gets started, I noted as I was trying to get through the materials in the strategic plan, there was a lot there, there's a lot to think about. And I was going to move that we ask that it be put off to our next meeting to be reviewed in 2 weeks' time, to give us a little more time to think about it and contemplate it before we come back for the presentation.
Motion to table for 2 weeks.
Please.
Any discussion around the motion to table? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report from Don May, Almost There, Inc., with regards to the Invest Owen Sound initiative. What is council's direction? Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I had some questions for Mr. May, if I might.
Absolutely. I'll invite Mr. May to come up to the horseshoe and.
My question around the changing of the bylaw or incorporating provisions, I guess I have a concern with the doing that concurrently with the request for expressions of interest. And my concern with that is that not assuming the outcome, that you know the outcome of how the bylaw process will work? I'm assuming you have several items, points you want to see included in that bylaw, and it raises red flags for me that we're changing the bylaw while at the same time going through a process. I guess my point is, shouldn't you do the one and then do the other?
Right. We would identify in the request for expressions of interest two things of risk to the proponents putting their interest in. One would be that it's subject to council's approval of an agreement of purchase and sale. The other caveat in the request for expressions of interest is that the bylaw for the municipality is being reviewed and would require amendment as a policy for this process. And the individuals putting their expression of interest forward would understand that up front. The expressions they provide are very simple. I provided council with an outline of what a request for expressions of interest is. So there's no legal fees with respect to complicated agreements until we have the essence of what is their interest and whether or not council can consider it. And then we bring that forward to council. Things take a lot of time, and people don't mind doing this because as we get through the fall, and if they're interested in building in the spring, they accept that concurrent work is the only way that things can happen. So by declaring it up front, the bylaw, in my opinion, needs to be reviewed. We've received copies of other bylaws recently, and today we received one from Burlington as to what their process is, and the Municipal Act has provided for more flexibility. So the review of the bylaw, I think it will be identified as a risk, but the point is that if we don't do the work concurrently, these properties probably won't be available in the spring for construction.
And so obviously the issue is that our current bylaw, we discussed the last time you were here, we discussed the current bylaw and doing the process within our current bylaw. Obviously that something's changed since the last meeting then.
No, we had identified in the initial report that the bylaw would have to be amended. I recently had a meeting with all the city managers and the regional manager of Simcoe County. And the majority of municipalities have the older bylaws as per the original municipal act. But I'm noticing more and more in Markdale and other communities now when they're offering property for sale, they're using the RFP process. You could look at the bylaw and say that there are some sections that provide alternatives, but I think it's better to modernize the bylaw and bring it forward properly. The point is, do people accept a little bit of risk in putting their interest forward? And I'm saying that's not at great expense, and it will be identified up front that it is subject to those two matters.
So I guess my last question would be the process then for updating the bylaw. How will that take, generally, it goes to a committee of, well, maybe the bylaw committee, I don't know, but it goes to a committee to be vetted before it would come to council.
Clerk and myself and the new person coming in as the bylaw enforcement, we were going to meet in the next few weeks when the individual comes on board. And we've already received some reviews of other municipalities. So we think the report is pretty straightforward, given that other municipalities have done this now, to provide a range of options for a municipality as a policy connected to a bylaw. So we believe that the end of October is a reasonable amount of time to bring the report back to council. This isn't pioneering work in terms of what other municipalities have already done. And from my discussion in Simcoe County, the municipalities were all doing this as well to bring in more flexibility, as is now permitted under the Municipal Act.
Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other questions or discussion around the report? We do have a recommendation. Did we have somebody move that? No? Okay. Councillor McMenamin.
Sorry, last point, we did, I'm wondering about legal advice on the other matters. Would that be appropriate in the recommendation? Yeah, I'd look for guidance on that one.
We'll certainly undertake to do that, Your Worship.
Moving the recommendation. Councillor Adair? Moved by Councillor Adair, recommendation on page 112. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Councillor Wright, are you in favor? Okay, good stuff, okay. It's like an auction. We have a report from the Manager of Economic Development and Tourism. We have had a request from the Owen Sound Attack to use the farmers market for the Stanley Cup.
I move the recommendation.
There we go. It's hard to vote against the Stanley Cup, although I shouldn't have said that, should I? Councillor Lemon.
Well, at least the Stanley Cup's coming to Owen Sound. Maybe someday it'll go to Toronto.
Rob Ford's coming up to see it. All those in favor? All those opposed? That motion is carried. That'll be a great day. Lots of fun. We have a request for land purchase on the East Bayshore Road, and this is a report from the City Clerk. It's Council's direction. Councillor Twaddle.
Yes, I would move the recommendation that we not sell the land.
Any discussion? Councillor Body.
Just have a clarification where this land is. Is this past Hobart's, down in that strip before we get to the old boat launch, somewhere in there, or?
If you can take a look on the map that I have on the screen, you'll see 32nd Street East. So this is after you've gone the turn on East Bayshore Road. So it is heading up towards Leith and
Past. past Goodyear. Just before the city limits. The house that Bob Rutherford used to live in, it's just this side of it, a few lots.
Oh, I didn't say that. Now I know.
Yeah, it's around the bend past Goodyear.
That's not the legal description, but that is the place.
It's
That's
like
the place.
where the Red Barn used to be, right? It's a local descriptive.
That's right. Okay. Yes, Councillor Wright.
First, then I'll follow up.
Well, Your Worship, I do support the recommendation, but I think in making that recommendation, because we have been criticized as a council for hanging on to all this property, we should be telling the public why we want to retain that land. I mean, it's all well and good for us to have the report in front of us, and we read the report, we know what the situation is, but I think there should be some clarification given to the public while we turn this sale down and why we're turning it down.
I couldn't agree more. I'll go to Councillor Lemon and then we'll go to staff for a bit of background on this.
Oh, well, Your Worship, first of all, it's hazard land, which we shouldn't be conveying, because someday somebody's going to want to put fill on it, and build on it. And the other thing is public access. We, as a council, took a stand many, many years ago now that we were going to have trails along the waterfront. And one of the key elements of that is, and we're requiring a developer to provide access from the road down to the waterfront. And this runs all against what we've been doing in that. And much as I'm quite sure that the Currys would look after the property, the problem is what happens 10 years or 20 years from now.
Well, you may have preempted the clerk's background information, but I don't see any additional information that would be required.
There's one more item, number 3, which indicates that that piece of property has a stormwater outlet, which engineering and operations would like to maintain access to without having to rely on an easement so that they can maintain and upgrade as necessary.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? Councillor Body. That motion is carried. We have a report from Director of Community Service with regards to lands located to the west of the Owen Sound Family Y, severance and pending redevelopment by Amico. Councillor McManaman.
Perhaps, Your Worship, I would move the recommendation, but I'm just wondering if we should ask staff to just,
Flush it out a bit?
yes. for the
Absolutely.
public.
Ask Ms. Coulter if we could get a bit more.
Thank you, Your Worship. If we could just go to the sketch a couple of pages down in the agenda. The lands behind the former Family Y, in your report, there's a bit of a chronology. The Family Y was built in '65, and then the daycare was developed around 1992. Right behind the Family Y building, the lands are subject to a crown patent, and it says that the city would hold those lands in trust until such time as you would require them for harbor purposes. And should you not require them for harbor purposes, that by resolution you could say that, and the lands that you've been holding in trust would be basically granted back to those adjacent property owners. In this case, there was a 40-foot right-of-way reserved for a road allowance. Part of First Avenue West adjacent to this property has been stopped up and closed. And so the recommendation for you this evening, and just as a bit more background, the Family Y building is being redeveloped by Amico, the builder of the Family Health Team, for transfer to Bruce Gray Child and Family Services, the former CAS. So our recommendation to you this evening is that you declare those lands to the rear of the Family Y around the curb line, so not the hazard lands. Those lands would remain with the city for ongoing environmental protection. that we would declare them not required for harbor purposes and that they be readied through the city solicitor for transfer, and that the city would prepare lease agreements similar to what we have now for the 40-foot right-of-way. Those lands shouldn't be transferred because they contain a large sanitary sewer. So as they are now, they'll be continued to be subject to a lease. There's other provisions in the transfer with respect to public access, et cetera, that will be part of the transfer and lease.
Councillor Lemon.
Yes, Your Worship. I think we should stress that this is very similar to the other, but in this case, there's an assurance of public access to the walkway down to the river, and so we're not cutting off the public from the Sydenham River, and that is part of the agreement and will be attached to any transfer.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'd move the recommendation and just note this is a extremely positive development for another extremely positive development for our downtown. And congratulate staff on working with the developer on this whole project.
This is indeed a great development for the city. It's a great use of a building that was left vacant, and it certainly helped to retain just about 200 jobs in the city of Owen Sound as opposed to migrating to another community. So I too, on behalf of council, congratulate staff for really stepping up to the plate and making this happen. It's a very good news story for us. And congratulations to council for supporting the vision. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have a report from the Director of Community Services with regards to downtown riverfront redevelopment. It's council's direction. That's right.
There was, I don't think Steve's here. I can't see, but I don't know whether Steve's still here or not. But I know that Steve Furness and my partner here, Ian, and I met with the developer of the marina, and we had a very good meeting with him, and he has some very good ideas on how we could utilize the inner harbor. Sorry about that. He has some good ideas on how we could utilize the inner harbor, and I'm hoping that they will meet with him and talk with him about some of his ideas, and I hope that we get acting on this fairly soon, because we've let already since our meeting, we've let about 3 months go by since we met with Mr. Van Dolder.
I think you're jumping ahead on us. We're only on page 130. And that's the Kim Allerton Northwood Associates Conceptual Urban Design Study.
I thought we already did that.
For the Downtown River Precinct. No?
Was that not moved?
No. Would you move that?
Downtown riverfront?
Yes.
Yes, I moved that.
Okay. All those, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Thank you.
That's basically the same thing,
Okay. We have a report with regards to Heritage Grove. And I will ask Director of Community Services for a verbal overview of this particular report, as the recommendation is clear, but perhaps some background would be helpful for council.
Thank you, Worship. Certainly Mr. Windram and Mr. Goyo are in the audience tonight, and certainly thanks to them for their perseverance through this process. Council will recall in September of 2011, you conditionally approved a pre-grading approval as well as site plan approval for a 12,000 plus square meter development on the lands east of Home Depot. Following the pre-grading agreement, we entered into a pre-grading agreement, and we have security in the amount of $89,000, and that ensures council that those lands would be restored should the development not proceed. With respect to site plan approval, it did have a number of conditions. There's a chart that outlines those for you, but really there are two things that remain outstanding, and that is that one is that the developer obtain MTO approval, and there's some security for off-site works. Council is asked to consider allowing the CBO, subject to the building code requirements being met, to issue foundation-only permits for 2 of the commercial buildings on the approved site plan. In terms of the things that still have to happen, we have to register the agreements. If council approves the bylaw tonight, that's considered low risk. After they're signed by you and the developer, they're still contractually bound. The MTO approval of the intersection, these require special magical drawings, PHM 125s. They were submitted to MTO and rejected. They've been resubmitted. They are signed by our city's manager of engineering services, and we're certainly working with the developer and MTO to get those drawings approved. But really, the risk in that case lies with the developer. The letter of credit, the report outlines for you the financial contribution that this developer has made to the city through the site plan approval process. We have everything except the security for the off-site works, the works that the developer will do within your right-of-way. We have an undertaking, as is suggested to council in the recommendation from the developer. We have received it, stating that that LC has been requested and will be forthcoming within the next 10 days. It also provides some other security for the city. So with that, Your Worship, our recommendation is that you approve a bylaw this evening to authorize the mayor and clerk to execute the site plan control agreement, and that council support the issuance of conditional foundation permits, provided all the requirements of the CBO are met, subject to that undertaking from the developer. And I can tell you that we have that undertaking this evening. I've also presented Mr. Windrum this evening with signed stamped drawings of the site plan and all the detailed engineering drawings back to him, so he has a red-lined version of final approved plans.
Good work. What is council's direction? Are there questions, discussion? Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. The foundation permits for 2 of the buildings, and are there 9 buildings total proposed? Is that right?
It's one large building, but it does have 9 units.
9 units.
The division of that may be variable depending on, right now they have zoning permission, but those are slightly flexible in terms of min and max GFA. Right now they're proposing to build the 2 most westerly units at the back of the property.
I guess my question is, and what would be, under the existing zoning, what would be remaining?
Well, they would have permission. The existing zoning contemplated the site plan that's been approved by council. So each time they would come in for a building permit, we would want to ensure that the building being proposed fits within the zoning. But as they use up their pieces of the pie, remember that this zoning is rather unique. The site is divided into commercial and service commercial. So we'll be monitoring and tracking as they're using their GFA in each of those categories, that what they're coming in for a permit for actually conforms with the zoning bylaw.
And there is a proposal to change that zoning, but that doesn't affect anything that we're discussing here.
That's right. The site plan that was approved by council, if the zoning is approved or not approved, the site can still be built using the existing permissions they have today through zoning.
That's great. I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship, and as one has been somewhat critical of the process, congratulate Mr. Goyu, Mr. Windrum, who are here tonight, and staff. This has not been an easy process, but they've all worked through it, and here we are going to start foundations. So that's great, and congratulations to everyone involved.
City Manager?
Thank you, Your Worship. It strikes me that I've finally completed the first project that I started before I even came here. So I'm really looking forward to the ribbon cutting, and have to congratulate staff for their perseverance and professionalism. And again, to the developers, I want to be at that ribbon cutting shortly.
Absolutely. All those in favor? Oh, Councillor Lemon.
One question pertaining to this gives them the foundation and footings permit. How much more will I have to do in order to get the actual building permit so they can complete the structure? Because I think everything's covered here, I just wondered.
Through you, Your Worship, we would like to register the agreement. We would like them to have the MTO approval for the intersection, and I'm certain, as per the undertaking, that the letter of credit for off-site works will be forthcoming. I'll be surprised if they have the foundations completed before we have those things happen, but if not, we'll be back to you.
Sure. Pretty much the recommendation. All those in favor? Opposed? A motion is carried. Congratulations and welcome to our community. Thank you. We have a report from the Director of Community Services again with regards to a partnership towards the purchase of some parkland. Councillor Wright. Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a site plan approval at 464 11th Street A West. It's parking lot. Council direction. Oh, Director of Community Services.
Your Worship, just in the recommendation, the second paragraph looks for direction from council with respect to the city-owned lane. This is a site plan approval for an existing parking lot that contemplates either the purchase or an encroachment or such type of lease agreement. We don't need any direction from council with respect to the lane, so if council would consider the first and last paragraphs only.
So strike the that middle sentence. Okay, Councillor Lemon.
I would move the recommendations part 1 and 3.
Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We have a report from the community planner, an application for rezoning on setback and lot coverage for the Woodland Estates subdivision on page 162. Would council like a bit of a verbal overview of this as well? I'm getting heads nodding, Ms. Coulter, if you could give just a brief overview in terms of what this means.
Certainly, Your Worship. Woodland Estate subdivision received final approval on April 4th of this year, and certainly the developer has moved quickly to service those lots. Some of you may have even driven on the road. We have received an application by Barry's Construction, and the proposal is specifically for lots 1 to 10, that the front, and those are the 10 lots that butt against the escarpment, so they're the most westerly lots in the subdivision, to reduce the minimum front yard setback from 7.5 to 5.5 and increase the maximum lot coverage to 45%. The remainder of the lots in the subdivision would have the front yard proposed a reduction from 7.5 to 6 meters, again with a maximum lot coverage of 45% and a rear yard setback of 6.5 meters. Your Worship, we gave notice of a complete application as well as a public meeting. The recommendation is that we prepare for the public meeting on September 10th, and subsequent to that, we would summarize the input received. What you have before you tonight is a technical report that sort of outlines a policy environment in which you would consider this application. I think that's everything, Your Worship.
Thank you. Questions, discussion? Councillor McManaman.
Your Worship, I'll move the recommendation and we move this rezoning to a public meeting.
So this will provide an opportunity for members of the public and the adjacent neighbors to speak to council, to speak to the rezoning that's proposed. Ms. Coulter.
My apologies, Your Worship. What I wanted to say, and I couldn't remember at the time, the application, the background information, the supporting studies are all listed on the city's website. So if someone's looking for that information, you can find it there or visit us at City Hall and you can get the information that way.
Thank you. This is quite a major subdivision development in the city, and there have been a number of concerns brought forward in terms of the speed with which traffic is flowing through the new 6th Avenue West section. And I know that there are some residents who have made signs and posted signs asking that people slow down. And I would urge staff to perhaps look into more official signs that perhaps may have some teeth to them, or traffic calming. Director of Operations.
Yes, just to advise council and the public that we have also requested the property owner to put in some speed bumps to restrict the speed through that one section.
That is music to many people's ears, and especially mine. Thank you. Councillor Chamberlain.
Could we just have clarification where that public meeting is going to be held?
Absolutely.
The public meeting will be held here at the Great County Building, as we will continue to be here while the City Hall continues to be reconstructed.
Okay. So it will be clearly advertised. It'll be at this location, and we'll make sure that people are well informed. And I'm sure they'll find us. Okay. Thanks very much. That was moved by Councillor McManaman. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. We have a report from the event facilitator with regards to the Tall Ship Rendezvous. Councillor Chamberlain.
I'd like to move this report as presented. If I could just comment that the 1812 pins that we've been gifted tonight are from the front team that came to Owen Sound to talk to us and get us all excited about what's coming. And we also have a pen as a gift from them as well.
Terrific. That's moved by Councillor Chamberlain. And I have to say, I didn't notice in the report anywhere, and this is to Director of Community Services, is there any provision for staff to contact and discuss the use of the harbour with Transport Canada for this, and/or Fisheries and Oceans, and also a real concern around the required depth for the tall ships coming into the harbour? We certainly do not want a tall ship to run amok.
That would be bad. Your Worship, we did have an on-site meeting last Tuesday evening. It was a beautiful night on the harbour. There were 3 rowing boats. There was a dragon boat. There was lots of fishermen. We talked about the depth of the water where the Chichimon berths. We were assured by the Tall Ships America that we have sufficient depth for the ships. We had at the meeting on Tuesday night the harbour master, who is in constant communication with Transport Canada. So for certain, those things are on our list, and we'll continue to communicate with them as well as council as we work through this process. And certainly the next thing that will come to you is more information on the Blockbuster grant that is a big part of the budget, but there is a real commitment by council to this project.
I like when grants are called blockbusters. I think that makes them more interesting somehow. Well, that's a whole other story. So we have the tall ships coming in 2013, moved by Councillor Chamberlain. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. And thanks to staff for all the work on this very exciting event. We have a report from the event facilitator with regards to Festival in the Park and a new partnership with the Scenic City Order of Good Cheer. It's council's direction on this. Councillor Dare.
I'll move the recommendation, Your Worship.
Thank you. That will see the Festival in the Park continue on under the guidance and management of the Scenic City Order of Good Cheer, who have very kindly stepped up to the plate to take this great annual event on. So another great partnership with a community group, and we're looking forward to that. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Facilities Booking Coordinator with regards to the Tom Thompson Arts Festival, First Avenue West, from September 28th to the 30th of this year. Councillor Boddy.
Thank you, Worship. I move this is a big year, as I think everybody knows, for Tom Thompson, 100th anniversary of him going to Algonquin Park. And there's been lots of festivities going on with Art Gallery and with Algonquin Park, Huntsville area. So this is just another neat thing to do in Owen Sound that should bring a lot of people to the city to be interested in. So I can move this.
Okay. Yeah, this will be a great event, and it's interesting. It's sort of all over the city, so it's a great opportunity for people to access public art easily. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship, and perhaps is, I don't know if I saw Ms. Eichhorn here, but just a question in the report about using First Avenue West or using the Bayshore properties. And has that been, oh, there she is. Yes.
Well, welcome.
So has that been, I thought you were back there
Ms.
somewhere.
Eichhorn and Mr. Stanley.
Sitting behind someone a little taller than I am. which
So has that,
happens.
anyway, the issue of First Avenue West as opposed to the Bayshore properties, has that been?
Yes, I'd like to actually introduce Matt Standen, who is the Canadian Spirit Festival Coordinator, and I'll let him address sort of the mechanics of it.
The reason that the Bayshore's come up in the report is we were looking at that as a secondary venue just in case we weren't able to move forward with First Avenue West, so that's why it's included.
The idea is to do on First Avenue West.
Exactly, create a sense of place as the festival theme is this year and have it out in front of the gallery.
Good plan. Councillor Lemon and Councillor Boddy.
I was just wondering if that might, I believe it was brought forward to rename the 9th Street Bridge as the Tom Thompson Bridge. Would that not be a great time to unveil that?
We could certainly do the unveiling or the official announcement of that, but I believe one of the things that we're looking to do is we would like to have a plaque or an official signage, and we don't have that done in this year, but that would be something perhaps that we could be including and looking at our budget for next year and perhaps do something in 2013, because as council knows, our plans for the Canadian Spirit Project do extend till 2017. So there's lots of opportunities for us to continually bring forward and find different events to celebrate.
Thank you.
Councillor Boddy? Well, Councillor Wright.
I'm assuming that this was discussed with the church that holds the Sunday service there.
Yes, all of our neighbors have been contacted and are in agreement and supportive of the project. Yes.
Councillor Boddy.
I don't know why I sort of assumed that Councillor Wright was going to ask this question. There's a number of pieces, public art pieces out there already. How many are there and where are they? I don't know if people have noticed them.
We have 5 or 6 of the public art projects called Tag Your It. They are going to be at all different locations downtown. We have them by the old CN railway station. We're going to have them at the riverbank. There's going to be one over at Grey Sauble Conservation Authority. There's going to be some in vacant downtown buildings in Owen Sound. All of them are not up yet. They'll continue to be installed all the way up until about the middle of September. So everything is going to be up and in place for the festival. And while the works are being put up, we're going to be putting notices about that on our Facebook page and sending out information. And members of the public are very much encouraged to come down, meet the artists, talk, and see what's going on. And we've had great response to them so far.
Thank you.
That's great. Looking forward to it. It'll be a great weekend. Thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion's carried. Thank you. We have a report from the Director of Operations with regards to the Julie MacArthur Regional Recreation Center plaque, which I believe Council received earlier this evening. Have we missed anyone? The recommendation is based on the report that is in front of you, that council approve the wording for the Julie MacArthur Regional Recreation Center plaque. It's going to be installed inside wall at the south entrance of the building. An awful lot of people to thank. It certainly took an awful lot of people, an awful lot of energy to see this building completed. And I believe that this unveiling will occur at the end of this month with the grand opening and public open house for the whole facility. Councillor Body.
I'll move the recommendation.
Thank you. Any discussion? Look forward to seeing everyone there, of course. We'll talk about that more at the next council meeting. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the environmental superintendent with regards to trespassing on the Lettingham property beside the former Derby landfill site, or the closed Derby landfill site. Council direction. Councillor Lemon.
The recommendation. I was a little surprised that the previous owners thought they had rights on the land, which clearly were not in the deed.
All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from purchasing agent with regards to T12-15, 4th Avenue East reconstruction, which is going to make an entire neighborhood ever so happy. Councillor Wright, her telephone in particular is going to become a little quieter. Councillor Wright.
I move that recommendation.
There are some very sweet moments sometimes.
There sure are, and my car thanks you, my phone thanks you, I thank you.
Thank all of council. That's certainly a project that's been on the books for a long, long time, and a well-needed project. It's when you have so many needs in our roads and infrastructure, it's prioritizing the various projects is a real balancing act. So anyway, good to see this go ahead. Councillor McManaman.
Question to Mr. McRoberts, when would he anticipate construction starting?
We're looking at construction starting as early as this week, but certainly by the beginning of next week.
We're
early
getting
enough,
on
thank you.
track. All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Thank you. This is another very exciting thing. It's like being kicked out of your home for a short period of time. It's really going to be nice to get back. So we have a report here with regards to tender T12-16. That would be a city hall roof that doesn't leak. Councillor Chamberlain.
I'll move the recommendation that we accept the tender T12-16 as presented here.
Thank you. And that would be DJ Pete Roofing and Sheet Metal Limited. Any discussion? Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I know when we were sending this out to, for a tender, I would like to ask through you, if I could, to either the city manager or to the director of operations, did we also tender out the Bayshore roof?
Yeah, the Bayshore roof was already awarded and tendered and awarded prior to this, so this has actually happened before this. So they're separate tenders, but they have both been issued as of tonight.
So are they repairing it now?
Very shortly they will be. In September they will be.
Wonderful, thank you very much. Boy, this is full of good news.
I'll tell you, the rubber is hitting the road these days. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report, again, a purchasing agent with regards to the East Hill pumping station upgrade. And this is to retain a consulting engineer. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I'd move the recommendation that we retain R.J. Burnside. Question for the director. You use a scoring matrix in this analysis to determine that they were the best proponent. I'm just wondering, in the next report that we'll discuss, there's another scoring matrix, and I'm just wondering the difference between those. This one's worth quite a bit more money than the one we're going to discuss in a few minutes. And I guess my question's around how do you determine the scoring tools, or why the different scoring tools for the two projects?
Two different, well, one main reason is that for both those scopes of work, dollars probably play a little bit more factor in a larger scoped project. And certainly for the bridge work, which is the next report you referred to, cost was not as significant a factor. Typically what we've been doing with most of our proposals now is doing actually a two-envelope process where the technical proposal comes forward. We don't review the cost, we review the technical component first. Once we've done that review and we've met a minimum score, we'll open up the cost proposals. We are in the process of working through with our purchasing agent to look at standardizing our purchasing policy towards that, and we'll be bringing that forward to council.
So that, if I might, that envelope process wasn't used here, but and that sounds like a good process to me.
It was used here in this case. You had to have a minimum score in order to be able to open up that proposal.
See, so it's.
But all the proponents basically met that minimum score, so we were able to open all the cost envelopes.
So the idea would be if they meet the minimum score, then it will go by cost, basically.
Well, cost would be added into the component of the cost based upon the scoring system that's identified, which is 25 points. 25% of the mark is based on cost.
Either way, I move the recommendation as R.J. Burnside, or no problem with awarding the contract to them.
Thank you. Councillor Lemon.
Question, does this mean we're not going to find out what the actual bid amounts were by the different contractors?
This isn't about contracts. This won't be about tenders. We're not using that process for tenders. It's typically just for retaining consulting engineers, because when we retain consultants, it's not always about the lowest price. You may have a consultant that may not be able to do the work properly. They might come in with a low price, but we certainly don't want to have a consultant involved in a project that either is not capable or doesn't have the resources to complete the work that we want them to do.
But all of these people who are listed here are all competent to do it, correct?
Correct, yeah. They all met the minimum requirement for the technical score.
Okay, and was Burnside the lowest?
They were the lowest cost, yes.
Okay, that's what I wanted to know. That should be really included in there.
On page 205, it does indicate that R.J. Burnside and Associates was the lowest cost compliant bid, so. Perhaps the Director of Operations could just explain for the members of the public that are watching and will be watching this in rerun or in the future. As a result of the engineering activities that are going to be happening with this particular consulting engineer, what benefit is it to, ultimately, what benefit will it be to the city to have the East Hill pumping station ultimately upgraded?
Absolutely, yeah. The purpose of the East Hill Booster Station upgrade would allow us to be able to provide full build-out capacity of our Sydenham Heights development proposals. So that'll provide us the flow capacity and also improve our fire protection capacity that currently has some limitations.
So in part, this would be addressed by development charges?
A component of it could be addressed by development charges, yes.
Okay, thank you. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report with regards to engineering services for bridge, culvert, and retaining wall inspections. Page 2006, we have a recommendation. This speaks somewhat to the new provincial initiative of urging municipalities or requiring municipalities to have proper, comprehensive asset management plans, and I may ask if the Director of Operations could give council a bit of an overview on where we're at in terms of that. This report somewhat speaks to that initiative.
That's correct, through your worship. Just the report in front of you is to do the biannual bridge and culvert inspection program, which we are required to do for all our bridges and culverts to ensure that they're safe for vehicle or pedestrian traffic. But the information we gather from these types of reports are very useful for us to develop our asset management plans, particularly for bridges and culverts in this example. But beyond that scope, we do have a new public works manager that's been retained by the city, that his focus has been to develop asset management plans for the city. And actually him and myself met this afternoon and furthered along a work plan that we're trying to bring forward to council that will identify the steps we need to take to implement full asset management plans for the municipality and all of our assets, not just roads, but including facilities and as well as water and sewer systems.
Thanks very much. Is council's direction on this recommendation? Councillor Body. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have a report from the fire chief with regards to Fire Mark, and I notice that Chief Nowak is here with us this evening. I might invite the chief up to the podium, and perhaps you could walk us through this particular report, and that would provide council with a little bit more background in terms of where we're heading with this.
Good evening, Your Worship. Firemark is a privately owned Canadian company that operates in all provinces. What they use is a rider in the home insurance policy that residents are paying for but is never used. And what they do is try to recover funds for operation of the fire department in the sense of for materials that are used at a fire for the loss, which is water, cleaning of bunker gear, breathing apparatus, and any subsequent firefighters that are called in on a callback. They use these opportunities for invoicing the insurance company for the cost of fire department attendance at specific insured perils. The majority of home insurance policies provide coverage to the insured fire department when the costs are incurred upon. And they act on behalf of the municipality on a 30% recovery fee. They only go to the insurance companies. They do not go to the land or the homeowners. It's strictly with the insurance companies. If they can't recover any money, then there's nothing paid by the municipality to that. Property taxes for fire department services are for such expenses as the fire hall, the pumper, ladder trucks, and salary of firefighters. A property insurance policy covers the loss, which includes, as I mentioned, fire extinguishing materials, refilling of air bottles, truck time, etc. What's required? Firemark requires a bylaw for most insurance and companies to have them as contract or formal contractee for the city to recover these funds. Currently, they are only in volunteer fire departments. They haven't had any movement into a full-time department. They have some that are interested, but none have moved up for it this time.
Councillor Lemon? Thank you.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was at a conference, the OSAM, and I first heard about this and brought it back. And I thought I got an estimate we might get $25,000, $30,000 a year out of it, which isn't a huge amount of money when you look at our multi-million-dollar budget, but every little bit helps. So I would move that we go ahead with this. It's not going to cost our homeowners any money, and it does give us some income that we could set aside for special purposes for the fire department.
Okay, we have a motion. Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Your Worship. Question, the chief may have partially answered it. My concern is that the departments that you've looked at or discussed it with aren't full-time departments. And the only one, Collingwood is full-time, correct?
Collingwood's composite.
Composite. So the only one that does have full-time, or a composite of sort, has turned down the proposal, and I wonder why, that's all. Why are the only ones, and if they're across Canada, so there are no others that you're aware of, or there are no others?
When I spoke to Chris Carey, who's a representative, said there is no full-time department. They're very close to one. They said it's going to council in September, but I'm not sure I can provide the name of that one.
So just, anyway, I'm not, it just makes me wonder why, if that they haven't had any other full-time. And I do think it's, to say that it's not going to cost the homeowner if they're receiving a lot of claims, insurance companies are receiving a lot of claims in this particular area, you know, rates are going to go up. I think that's an obvious one, but anyway, thank you.
Sure. Councillor Chamberlain.
I just wonder what our current practice is. Like, what I understand is that if a person has the fire and our fire department goes to it, then we try to get some money back for our services? Is this what this is about?
Not at the present time. There has been some discussion with fire departments looking into trying to do that.
Is that what this is
But
about?
to understand the insurance ins and outs, they've deferred that they don't have the staff time to be able to do that.
See. We don't have very many fires.
Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. We've had a look at this before, and I can't remember if it was at a committee level or what. I have a lot of reservations about this, and it's mostly because I'm not sure exactly. I don't have enough information, I don't think, to make up my mind. I'm not going to support the motion. I would suggest that we wait for a year and see what happens with other communities and review it at that time. I just don't have enough information to be the rabbit out in front of the dogs chasing us. I'd rather be a dog, I think, in this case. So my position is I'm not going to support it, but would like to look at it again down the road.
Okay, to the motion, Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I've spoken to the representatives of this company just a few weeks ago at AMO and a year ago at AMO when it first came up to the fire committee. And I don't know that I can articulate my reservations about this. And it's not, as Councillor Chamberlain might have thought, this is not our fire service charging people because we came out. It's a clause in most homeowners insurance that this company has found a way of, how do I phrase this? It's not taking advantage of, but using that clause that exists. But it seems like a really good idea, and it looks really good on paper, but we would be like the first professional community with a professional firefighting force to do this, and there aren't that many other communities that have volunteers that do it. And I have to agree with Councillor Body that, you know, waiting a year for the number of fires that we actually have in Owen Sound and the kind of money that we may or may not be talking about. I like Owen Sound to be a leader in things, but sometimes you should sit back and let someone else do the heavy lifting, and I would have to agree to, and I will vote against the motion. I think it should come back in a year, though, I think, and see where other people are.
Councillor Twaddle.
Well, I'm a little concerned about the reticence. This is not something that people are not insured for. This is a risk that people are insured for, along with many other risks on their homeowner's policy. It's just one, and it's one that the insurance companies have factored into their rates. So people are paying for this coverage now, but nobody's claiming it. So I really have some difficulty understanding the councillor's reticence to go forward on something that's already covered. I mean, if you were in a car accident and you were covered for a certain loss, you would claim it. So I don't understand why we wouldn't be pursuing something that the people who are affected are already paying for. They're paying for a service. The insurance companies are getting a windfall because they're charging for a service that's not being used. So I certainly support it. I think we should go forward.
Thank you. Any further discussion? Councillor Lemon?
If I may. I understand when two cars collide and say there's gas leaked, who pays the cost of the firemen coming out then?
No one. It's
You don't-
taxes.
We don't charge for that under the,
That report came to council back in the early 2000s, and that was decided against charging for motor vehicle collisions.
well, we've actually looked at part of it before and rejected it, but I think we should move ahead, and that's why I brought the motion. We always are crying we need more money. Here's a chance to get more money. And let's do it.
Councillor McManaman?
Thank you, Worship. I put a motion on the table, on the floor to table this motion for budget and ask the chief to come back with more information on full-time fire departments across Canada that are working with this company or similar companies.
So the motion to table is to the first budget meeting?
Sure.
Okay, to the tabling motion. All those in favor? Four, five. Okay, opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you very much, Chief, for that overview, and we'll look forward to discussing that more at budget time. We have a report, a series of reports of minutes of boards and committee that require council approval, starting with the Recreation and Parks Advisory Committee. Should we do these one at a time? All those, anyone want to move the item 12C1? Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. I move the minutes of Parks and Rec with the following comment. Within that is a really good trails report, which is pretty amazing. I do note, however, that I've received feedback from taxpayers as a councillor. They're concerned about the paving or potential paving or planning to pave or even looking at paving, we don't have the money for it, of the fitness trail that runs from approximately 5th Street East in the back way from, I guess, the David Adair's neighborhood in the back way, or the east side into Harrison Park. There's a lot of people that want it to be soft so you can run on it. They're concerned about asphalt going down in there. They're also concerned about the gravel that's there. They like the finer chip that was easier on ankles and things. And on one hand, they're concerned about the washout going into the water, which is a concern. And on the other hand, they don't want it paved because they're concerned that a hard-packed, while accessible more to some, is more difficult on ankles and things for fitness people. So I make that comment and otherwise move the minutes from Parks and Rec.
Thank you. Ms. Coulter?
Just a comment, if I could, through your worship, the idea of a paved spine of trail that would be accessible is sort of one that the master plan puts forward. Certainly before we would pave any section of it, we would have an opportunity for public input and comment. I know what you're talking about in terms of that trail. There are sections where we've used a little larger gravel. Those are the sections where we have water that crosses the trail, and rather than having the finer stone dust washing out, we've gone to a larger gravel. So what I do is run actually on the grass in those sections, but certainly the Trails Master Plan is a big achievement for the Recreation Committee, and I think provides a good outline for the city moving forward.
Any other? Councillor Chamberlain?
I'll just comment on how impressed I was with it as well, but I've had a lot of rollerbladers say to me they really are pleased if we're going to go ahead with paving, because they'd like to rollerblade or roller skate right around. So that's the way it goes.
Okay, any further discussion on that set of minutes? Seeing none. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We have Operations Advisory Committee minutes from August the 15th. Councillor Adair.
Thank you, Your Worship. I'll actually move the bulk of the remaining minutes, the minutes of the Operation Advisory, Environmental Waste Advisory, Bylaw Committee, Fire Services Advisory Committee, and the various parking committees, and the Regional Rec Center Steering Committee.
Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I did have one concern with the Fire Services Committee minutes, and I'm wondering if that could be pulled to discuss separately. The situation about the sale of the backup pumper, the reserve pumper. If that could be pulled.
Sure, yeah. So the movers agreed we'll be discussing that separate item. Any other items that council would like to see pulled aside on this roster? I would personally like to know when the parking review ad hoc committee is planning to complete its work and bring a final set of recommendations to council. Oh, the chair isn't here right now. Mr. Ritchie.
If I could, Your Worship, we plan to meet September 4th, and hopefully that may be our meeting where we bring forward some recommendations to council, but I guess we'll see on September the 4th. That notice will go out tomorrow.
Thank you. Councillor McManaman.
And if I might, Your Worship, as a member of that committee, there were a number, as you see in these minutes, a number of financial discussions around parking and where the money would come from for complementary parking. And the last meeting, it was left to present that financial information to the DIA and for them to respond in some way to that. So perhaps that's probably what we'll discuss at the September meeting, their reaction to the, as you see, the numbers point to a rather large amount that is needed to make the parking system complementary. A large source of revenue needs to be found somewhere if the system is to be complementary.
Thank you. I think council appreciates that update and review. Councillor Body.
Thank you, Your Worship. I note that I had an opportunity at the AMO conference to talk to the mayor and several councillors from Brockville that we were hoping to follow their model, and learned that they are not covering all the costs that they hope to, being capital expenditures, have capital expenditures coming up on parking lots in Brockville, and made it pretty clear that they're more likely to come to our model where they will be returning the parking meters. I don't think they voted on it or have had that full discussion yet, but it was very clear that they've come to the conclusion that they can't afford what they have without parking meters in their downtown, unfortunately. So that's, we're chasing them and finding out that they're a moving target, I guess.
Yeah, the overall, the paid parking system, whether it was meters or ticket spitters, I'm not too sure on the exact detail of that, but it's certainly, they're seriously looking at a return to a paid parking system. That is just one of the many good reasons why we get educated at our conferences. On page 309, there is a reference to the mayor and city manager confirming that we will support the Georgian College proposal. And I'm really not sure what that means. And I apologize to staff for not bringing that up earlier today. But it was resulting from some discussion around the good success of the Owen Sound Billy Bishop Airport and the management group seeing some increased revenues and so on, and perhaps it was in response to the potential for training opportunities at the. It's very vague, and the mayor and the city manager, we will do whatever council wishes, but clarity is a good thing. I don't know that it will affect the outcome if it's passed as part of this minutes because of the vagueness, but perhaps later on or tomorrow, we can confirm what the detail was around that. It's a strange minuted item. Okay, all the...
Worship.
Oh, Ms. Corsi.
Thank you, Your Worship. I do recall actually the mayor making that comment. But if that's something that was taken out of context, we can certainly revisit it and take that out of the minutes.
Yeah, it's pretty vague. But we have all the boards, minutes of boards and committees for approval, save and accept the fire services. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. We'll now go to the Fire Services Ad Hoc Committee and Councillor McManaman.
Thank you, Worship. I see the chiefs coming to the podium. My concern with the, specifically the sale of the old pumper, the backup pumper, is not the sale per se, it's if we're doing it too soon. I'm wondering it says somewhere in the report here, the mini pumper came in at the end of March, and I'm wondering if we shouldn't hold off on that sale until we have a more complete analysis, if that's the right word, of that. I just worry once we sell that asset, if we ever want to return to that asset, it will be quite a bit more expensive. And so I guess my question is, we have put it out, the tenders, or not tenders, but requests for people to buy it. Anyway, I guess that's my question to the chief. If we should perhaps hold off until we have a wider view of the mini pumper? That's maybe a tough one for you to answer.
Yeah, it's a tough question there. At this point, historically, I noticed that there was an error in some of the numbers that were transposed through the different drafts. But the mini pumper has been out of service for 8 days, the pumper for 3 days, and then the aerial for 4 days. Right now, historically, that was one time when we had a number of trucks out at the same time. As was said earlier, we don't really have a lot of fires, and we don't have a lot to base it on at this time. So it would just be at the direction of council. When we advertised the vehicle, we only had interest from 2 people, and we advertised it through a number of different sources. So the only caution would be the value would probably decrease over.
Anyway, Your Worship, I would, so we moved the rest of the minutes. So on this item, just to put it on the table, I would move that we not sell the backup pumper and revisit it once we have a full year's worth of service of the mini pumper. So that would be, I guess, March of 2013.
Okay.
The spring, summer of next year.
Okay.
So that would be my motion.
Discussion on that item. Councillor Twaddle?
Thank you, Worship. When we move forward with this plan, the intention always was to sell the pumper. Every time we replace a piece of equipment, we sell the one we're replacing. We don't hang on to it for 6 months or a year to make sure the new one works. We've had 6 months of experience. The system is working the way it was expected it would work. There's, again, a source of revenue that we should be pursuing according to the plan that's already been approved by council. And as the report points out, there is already a redundancy in the backup, and there's mutual aid. So there are, we're not putting the property owners of Owen Sound at risk in the event of a fire. And I think we should go forward with the plan that was put in place when we set out to do this.
Councillor Wright, and then Councillor Lemon.
Thank you very much. Well, we certainly had a discussion at the fire board about this, and everything Councillor McMahon talked about, we discussed it amongst the councillors that were there, and I met the chief. And I feel very comfortable in putting that up for sale at this time. We don't need it. It's sitting there. It's just going to become a cost of repair and more expense to us. So we decided that, as the report said, it was a unanimous decision that we get rid of that now and that the chief put it up for sale. So I certainly support that we follow what has been recommended.
Okay, Councillor Lemon.
Well, I mean, a year from now, somebody will say, well, maybe we should make it for 2 years test. The point is that the piece of equipment is depreciating on a daily basis. 6 months from now, it'll be worth less than it is now. And this has been reviewed to death. We are covered, as Councillor Twaddle has said, and I certainly agree with him on this. We need to start doing things to save money. And this is a one-time only, but it certainly will help because we're going to be needing every penny we've got for next year's budget. So I think we move ahead with it. I think this is enough is enough. That's why we have a fire committee.
Any further discussion on this motion? Question to you, Chief, in terms of the highest bidder, would there be a minimum opening bid stated?
We never started with any minimum bid. The minimum bid probably would have been what we were offered if we would have purchased new, which is the same amount as this was.
Okay. Further discussion?
This motion that we're voting on
is simply the motion that Councillor McManaman put forward, which is to, perhaps the clerk could read it back, to be clear, is to basically to defer the sale of this equipment.
To move the minutes, save and accept 7B, and for 7B, wait until spring 2013 to determine if the new equipment is working.
Sorry, what was that?
We wanted to defer the decision to spring of 2013 to determine if the new equipment is working such that the old equipment could be sold.
Oh, all right, I suppose that's, yes. Add that last part in, I think. Fair enough.
So that's a interesting motion. So we're, within this motion, council will be approving overall set of minutes, except that one particular portion, which is, as the clerk has discussed. I would prefer procedurally that we just separate it out. So if we could just separate out item
7B.
7B, so we could just pull that and move the recommendation of the balance of the minutes. Mover? Thank you. Councillor Lemon. All those in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. We'll now go to Councillor McManaman's motion with regards to the sale of the 1998 American La France pumper. Councillor Adair, did you want to vote or speak or vote?
It's a minor procedural thing.
There's a motion on the floor, right?
Yeah, you caught me.
No, it was actually about the nature of this motion, which is a negative motion. And
Yes.
there is now before us a motion from that committee that we have not acted upon.
Correct.
So normally what we would do is council would now, because a councillor has asked for that to be pulled, is council would act upon the motion as it was presented at the meeting and whether that passes or fails. But I didn't really want to
You're right.
get into that.
So we're going to pull that item because I do like to stick strictly to procedure, as you know. And so we're going to vote on that the American La France pumper be sold to the highest bidder. And that's moved by Councillor Adair. So if you were to vote, you figure it out. All those in favor?
Selling the pumper.
2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All those opposed? Councillor McManaman. That motion is carried. There, we've completed the Fire Services Committee minutes. Thank you. It was a little clunky, but we did it. And thank you, Councillor Dare, for your attention to detail. We have minutes of the in-camera meeting, in-camera meetings for approval. Councillor Wright. D and E?
Both, yes.
Okay. All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. Other business, we have Councillor Twaddle.
Thank you, Your Worship. When I was at AMO last week, I had a discussion with one of the manufacturers of LED streetlights. Now, about 4 or 5 years ago, we went to LED traffic signals because the energy savings were such that the payback was, I think, less than 3 years. At that time, we looked at LED streetlights. They were not as efficient, and the savings were not there to provide a strong business case for a payback. I understand from speaking to this particular supplier that energy efficiency and cost have come together to the point where there may be now a business case to go to LED streetlights, particularly when you factor in maintenance issues. So I'm just raising it tonight to get it back on the agenda. I know we're heading into budget discussions for 2013, and I don't want to try and inject this into that. It's going to take more time than that to do it. But what I would like to do is just ask Council to refer it to the Operations Advisory Committee to report back to Council sometime during 2013 in time for possible consideration in the 2014 budget deliberations. And I would just make that a motion.
Sure. Councillor Lemon.
Speaking for the motion, from what the reading, I was not, when I was at OSUM, I was exposed to some of the same material on the lights that the councillor was exposed to. And it would appear one of the problems when we looked at them, we looked at refitting existing heads, and now apparently we put the new heads on, you don't have the problems that existed at that time. And I believe he is right, it was about 3 years, plus there was a huge maintenance saving because you don't have to relight them. I think currently we do all the bulbs once a year or something like that, I'm not sure exactly. But these things have a life expectancy of 7, 8 years. And we're looking at a huge saving to the city with no loss in quality, no loss in what we're doing. And I would encourage it go to operations, and hopefully the report will be ready sooner rather than later.
Okay, all those in favor? Opposed? That motion's carried. Thank you. Councillor Twaddle, you had another item.
My second item is, and I'm not sure where to refer this, who decides where the no parking from here to corner sign goes, what piece? But I raise this because of a situation that's occurred just in the past several months at 2nd Avenue and 12th Street. It's the location of the former Bergeron Auto. It now has been taken over by a security company. At the time when Bergeron Auto was operating in there, there was a short section of curb from 12th Street south. This is on the east side of the road. And then a curb cut for vehicles to enter the property. The property's now been fenced off. A no parking here to corner sign is there, but it's been brought to my attention that it's very close to the corner and the sight line is very difficult. I've driven through there a few times myself to check it, and it seems that vehicles are parking fairly close to the corner. I'm not sure whether it's engineering services that determines this or whether it's bylaw, but I would just like to ask whoever should do that to review the location of that particular sign.
Directly to the city manager.
Thank you, Your Worship. We're next Monday, I believe, going to have our new bylaw person coming on, and we will refer it to that person who will get advice from our engineering department.
That's perfect, thank you.
Okay, thanks, Councillor Twaddle. We have next Councillor Adair, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. I had two items. And it does seem so long since we were here on August the 2nd, the 2nd of this month. Councillor Chamberlain and I were at a function the two city museums put on, and we received a certificate, which I will hand up to you. Basically, it was an appreciation night for all of the organizations in the city that support the two museums. Us, our RBC, who give them some financial support, and the ship captains through their association also support the museum. It was a very nice evening. There was free food for those of us who showed up, so it was overall, I think, a very successful meeting, and I said I would bring the certificate here.
Thank you so much.
The other item, and Councillor Twaddle has already talked about, one thing that he learned at AMO. I'm just wondering it's more for me, what is the best forum for those of us who go off to conferences to sort of, I don't know, download or dump all of the knowledge and things that we have learned. Certainly while I was at the conference, I was posting on my council Facebook page, I'm going to this and I'm going to that. I mean, I went to ones on everything from development permits to bike-friendly communities to business incubators to our infrastructure deficit to how to pre-qualify contractors, and there's just a whole bunch of stuff. And I'm not, in past years, there's usually been one or two things, and I've kind of talked about just, what's the best forum for us to report all that stuff?
Sure. In my view, I think, when you've attended some of these sessions, there's so much information. I would hope that most councillors that are at the conference would attend sessions that are relative to the advisory committees that you're serving on, and I would think any really direct idea that would be suitable to discuss at the appropriate advisory committee would be a great place to launch it. However, having said that, I mean, Councillor Twaddle's idea of the LED, which he researched and discovered at the AMO conference, came up here tonight. So I think that's perfectly acceptable unless any other member of council has a better idea, or staff. What we don't want to see is we do not want to see council members writing reports and filing reports. We don't want to go down that road. I think that we have lots of opportunities when we're meeting, and if it's in other business, if it's appropriate, to bring it forward at that time, otherwise at the advisory committee, or discuss it with the appropriate staff, director, city manager. City manager would like to get in on this.
We always look forward to the information coming back, and I would suggest that it would be helpful, and perhaps from a timing perspective, if you had an opportunity to speak to the director in the particular area, then not only can that person get the information from you, but perhaps provide further information and research to go to the committees, so that you can have a more fulsome discussion.
Thank you.
Oh, that's good discussion in terms of we do discover often incredible new opportunities when we're at these learning opportunities, and how to do things better, how to be more efficient, and how to save money. And I have to congratulate the city manager on her presentation at the AMO conference in terms of the tremendous savings that the city has realized over the years with the LAS utilities program. That was a well-attended session, and from all reports, a good news story for sure.
You might want to speak on the police chief's
yes,
as well.
He did a good job too. No, the chief did Chief Sornberger presented along with the OPP a different view of municipal policing versus OPP policing, and spoke to the cost savings and the reduction our police service is enjoying through his leadership and that of the Police Services Board, and the opportunities that Owen Sound Police Services has realized, bringing on an incredible number of dispatch contracts. And that is something that, as a result of the presentation he made at the AMO conference, he is currently discussing new dispatch contracts with 4 municipalities and their police service that were in attendance. So it certainly was an Owen Sound infused AMO conference, and the leadership that our staff showed and our police chief showed at that particular conference was certainly something to be proud of, and we'll be there again. It's great to be leaders in the municipal sector. Councillor Dare, were those your items? Okay. Councillor Wright.
Thank you, Your Worship. I direct this through you to, I believe, to Pam Coulter. The, on 10th Street East, the new road, that buffer that's in the middle is in very bad shape. And I think it's trying to grow grass. I'm not quite sure what it is. It's growing, but it does not look very good. It looks pretty sick. And I'm sure if it does grow grass, we'll have to cut it. So I am wondering if perhaps you could speak to Parks Board and see if they would do something like what Collingwood did along Pretty River Parkway. And they put that grass, the
Decorative fescue.
grass in there that doesn't take any care. It looks after itself, and it's quite attractive looking, and we wouldn't have to maintain it. So
It is a
I'd just
perennial.
like you to have a look at that, please.
Okay. Staff will take that as direction. Thank you. Did you have any other item, Councillor Wright? That was, okay. We'll go to Ms. Coulter.
Thank you, Your Worship. I did have an opportunity to
Oh, right.
introduce.
That was the introduction of Mr. Popovich. Thank you to City Clerk.
Thank you, Your Worship. This is a late item that I was not able to do a written report because we just received the information, and we are interested in helping the developer who's looking for this information from council and wanted to get it forward as quickly as possible. Council will remember just recently, before the break for the summer, that this lane that I'm showing you on the screen, you agreed to a sale in principle of this lane to the northern side of 11th Street A West. And the reason that it was cut off at that point is because staff had some concerns about potential encroachments to do with the blue property at the top. And we no longer have concerns around that, so we're asking council to consider sale in principle of that as well, so that the entire lane would go forward as one item. And along with that, it would be a direction for us to put a notice of public meeting so that we could contemplate stopping up and closing this lane, declaring it surplus, and potentially disposing of it. And I have a recommendation which I'll put up for council's consideration.
Councillor Lemon.
Your Worship, I would move the recommendation.
Thank you. Discussion? Questions? All those in favor? Opposed? That motion is carried. Thank you. We will suspend our meeting to return to our the in-camera portion of our meeting, and I'll see everybody in this room over here. Thank you.